Hello there and welcome. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. This is the Sleepy Professor, your sanctuary for drifting off while feeding your curious mind. Tonight we're going on a journey inward. We're going to explore the strange, beautiful, endlessly fascinating landscape of personality. That quiet constellation of traits and memories and emotions that makes you utterly, completely, uniquely you. Think about it for a moment. Your personality is like a fingerprint of the mind. Yet unlike a fingerprint, it shifts and shimmers. It changes like mist moving across a morning field. Your personality can be shaped by genes passed down from ancestors you never met. It can be molded by pivotal moments throughout your life, by experiences both wonderful and difficult. Somewhere deep within this intricate tapestry lives your courage. Your fears are woven in there too. So is your kindness, your humor, and all those hidden patterns that guide the way you love, the way you think, and the way you see the world unfolding around you. Science is still uncovering how all these threads weave together so beautifully. From the tiniest molecules to the grandest memories, from fleeting thoughts to lasting temperament. So tonight, we'll wander together through that inner cosmos. We'll explore what makes each of us so recognizably human, yet endlessly, wonderfully unique. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through the landscape of science and wonder, I'd love to invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, or share a thought in the comments below. It truly helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time, one curious mind seeking rest. But for now, right now, just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the weight of the day begin to lift away. Let the wonder of the mind gently cradle your thoughts as we begin. The genetic blueprint. Your personality is partly written in your DNA. It's an extraordinary thought, isn't it? Deep within your cells, these quiet codes whisper hints of who you might become. Certain genetic sequences influence how sensitive you are to reward. They affect how quickly you recover from stress. They shape how you process emotion, both the joyful ones and the difficult ones. These genes guide the very structure of brain regions that regulate impulse, empathy, and attention. But here's the beautiful part. Your DNA is not your destiny. It's not a fixed sentence written at birth. Every life experience you have, every friendship you form, every heartbreak you endure, all of these dance with those inherited scripts. They rewrite them through chemical switches that can turn genes on or off. Scientists call this remarkable dialogue between biology and experience epigenetics. It's a living conversation, one that continues throughout your entire lifetime, from your first breath to your last. Your personality, then, is not carved in stone. It's not locked in place forever. Instead, it's a living echo of both your ancestry and your experience. It's always evolving, always responding as your cells listen and react to the world you move through each day. Think about identical twins raised apart. This is one of the most fascinating areas of personality research. Across decades of twin studies, researchers have found astonishing consistencies between siblings who were separated at birth. Some twins share not only the same tastes in art or the same sense of humor, but eerily similar life choices. They choose similar careers. They laugh in the same distinctive way. They have parallel emotional patterns. These striking parallels suggest a strong genetic influence on temperament, and yet the differences between separated twins tell an equally important story. Those small quirks shaped by unique environments reveal the creative flexibility of personality. Yes, genes may set the stage. They provide the backdrop, the raw materials, but experience writes the lines. Experience directs the play. Even without shared surroundings, even when raised in completely different families and cultures, twins often mirror each other's emotional rhythms. Their decision-making styles overlap. Their reactions to stress follow similar patterns. This hints that the architecture of personality has deep biological roots reaching back through evolutionary time. At the same time, the individuality between them proves something equally profound. Nurture matters, context matters, even coincidence and chance encounters matter. They all sculpt something wholly singular in each person. In every twin pair, we see nature and nurture meeting like two artists painting the same portrait, but doing so in slightly different light. The result is similar, but never identical. Brain wiring and personality. The brain's wiring patterns can actually predict how introverted or extroverted you are. It's remarkable. Inside your skull right now, billions of neurons are forming intricate highways of electrical conversation. When scientists map these neural networks using functional imaging technology, distinct signatures emerge. Clear patterns appear. Extroverted individuals often display stronger connections between their reward centers and their attention networks. This makes them more naturally drawn to social stimulation and novelty. New people, new places, new experiences, these things light up their neural pathways with pleasure and anticipation. Introverted brains, meanwhile, show heightened internal connectivity. This is especially true in regions linked to reflection, memory, and imagination. This inner wiring favors depth over breadth. It prefers quiet focus over constant engagement with external stimuli. And here's something important to understand. Neither pattern is better than the other. They're not good or bad, superior or inferior. They simply represent different strategies for navigating the world we live in. One brain thrives on external energy, drawing fuel from interaction and activity. The other thrives on inner balance, finding richness in contemplation and solitude. Just as no two fingerprints are exactly the same, no two connectomes, no two neural wiring maps are identical. Your personality arises from the unique way these neural pathways hum together. They form the rhythm of thought that defines how each of us relates to others, to silence, and to the deepest parts of ourselves. Your default brain network may actually shape how much you daydream. Have you ever wondered why your mind wanders? When the mind drifts away from the present moment, it activates what neuroscientists call the default mode network. This is a constellation of brain regions that light up during imagination, during memory recall, during self-reflection. People who spend more time drifting into thought tend to have stronger connections within this network. It becomes a kind of mental playground, linking distant ideas and seemingly unrelated possibilities. Daydreamers, contrary to what you might have been told in school, are not simply distracted. They're not wasting time. They're actually rehearsing creativity, empathy, and problem solving beneath the level of conscious awareness. Studies suggest that the quality of your inner world, whether it's curious or anxious, whether it's expansive or constrained, reflects the tone of this network's activity. In calm, open minds, this network paints visions and insights. In restless, worried minds, it can amplify concerns and anxieties. The same circuitry that lets us drift through fantasy, that lets us imagine being somewhere else or someone else, also helps us understand other people's perspectives. It helps us plan futures that haven't happened yet. It helps us create art, write stories, compose music. In the quiet theater of thought, your brain rehearses countless versions of reality before a single word is ever spoken aloud. The chemistry of temperament. Certain genes influence how optimistic or anxious you tend to feel. Among the many threads woven into our genetic fabric, a few are particularly important in regulating neurotransmitters. You've probably heard of some of these: serotonin and dopamine, the chemicals that color our emotional tone, that paint the backdrop of our mood. Variations in these genes can tilt the balance of how easily we experience calm versus anxiety, hope versus worry. For example, people with a particular version of the serotonin transporter gene may respond more intensely to stressful situations. Their nervous systems react more strongly. Meanwhile, others seem to have a built-in resilience, a kind of genetic buffer against stress. But here's the crucial part. Genetics only opens the door. It provides possibilities, tendencies, inclinations. Environment and learning decide whether we actually walk through that door. Your mindset matters. Your upbringing matters. Even your nutrition can nudge these delicate chemical balances one way or another. So optimism, then, is not a fixed gift that some people receive and others don't. It's a dynamic state that rises from biology meeting perspective, from chemistry meeting choice. Your genes may whisper certain tendencies, they may suggest certain patterns, but your experiences and your choices determine the volume of that voice. They decide whether that whisper becomes a shout or fades to silence. Emotional outlook becomes a collaboration, a dance between molecules and meaning, between what you were born with and what you've learned along the way. Even a single letter change in your DNA can alter temperament. Think about this for a moment. The entire human genome is written in a language of roughly 3 billion letters. 3 billion chemical bases strung together in a sequence that makes you uniquely you. And sometimes, just sometimes, a single misplaced letter can ripple outward into behavior. A change in one base pair within a gene can subtly modify how a neurotransmitter receptor functions. This tiny molecular shift can influence your sensitivity to fear, to novelty, to social reward. Though the change is microscopically small, it can shift the chemical balance of the brain. It can shape patterns of curiosity or caution that play out across an entire lifetime. These molecular variations don't dictate destiny. They don't determine who you'll become with absolute certainty. They merely tune the instrument of the mind. They adjust the strings slightly, changing the tone and timbre of your internal experience. Over countless generations, these variations become part of evolution's grand experiment with personality. They offer diversity to a species that thrives on adaptation, on having different types of people with different strengths. In one person, that small genetic variation might inspire boldness and adventure-seeking. In another, it might encourage careful reflection and thoughtful planning. Every human psyche carries countless thousands of these micro-edits, these tiny variations. Each one is a biological brushstroke in the grand, unfinished portrait of your individuality. The impact of early experience. Early childhood stress can shift personality development for life. This is one of the most important findings in developmental psychology. When a child's world is filled with unpredictability or fear, when safety feels uncertain, the developing brain adjusts to survive. It adapts to the environment it finds itself in. Hormonal systems that regulate emotion become hypersensitive, priming the body for constant vigilance. This can lead to adult personalities marked by caution, by anxiety, or paradoxically, by deep empathy for others who are in distress. The child who learned to read emotional weather very carefully often becomes the adult who notices when others are suffering. Yet resilience often grows from this same difficult soil. Supportive relationships, even with just one caring adult, even one person who provides consistent safety, can buffer these effects dramatically. These relationships teach the nervous system that safety is possible again, that the world isn't always threatening. Over time, with care and support, neural pathways once tuned exclusively to threat can be rewired toward calm and trust. The imprint of early stress may never vanish completely. Those early experiences leave their mark, but that imprint can evolve into unexpected strength. It can become an intuitive understanding of other people's pain. It can fuel a fierce drive for stability and security. The story of personality begins not in fixed biology alone, but in how young, plastic, adaptable brains learn to respond to the storms or sunlight of their earliest world. Those early chapters matter, but they don't determine the ending. The possibility of change. Your personality can subtly change after long-term meditation practice. This is fascinating research. Prolonged meditation does more than just quiet the mind temporarily. It literally reshapes the brain's very architecture. Studies using brain imaging technology reveal increased thickness in regions tied to attention, to compassion, to emotional regulation. As awareness deepens through regular practice, people often report feeling less reactive to life's challenges. They feel more open to experience, more patient with themselves and others. The practice trains the nervous system to pause before habit takes over. It creates a space between stimulus and response. This gently alters traits like impulsivity or neuroticism over time. Over months and years, the daily act of returning to the breath, of noticing thoughts without judgment, becomes a neurological rehearsal for equanimity, for balance and peace. Personality, once thought to be relatively stable in adulthood, bends slightly under the steady, patient weight of mindfulness practice. Where once the mind chased every thought compulsively, it now learns to observe thoughts. Where once emotions seemed to control behavior automatically, they now pass through awareness like weather moving across the sky. Meditation, when practiced long enough and consistently enough, becomes a quiet sculptor, reshaping temperament from the inside out, grain by grain, breath by breath, moment by moment. Sleep quality profoundly affects how agreeable or irritable you feel day to day. This is something we can all relate to. When your body rests poorly, when sleep is disrupted or insufficient, the brain's emotional circuits fall out of sync. They lose their delicate balance. The prefrontal cortex, which helps regulate impulse and empathy, loses its healthy balance with the amygdala, which is the center of threat perception and emotional reaction. The result, a shorter temper, diminished patience, a dulled capacity for genuine connection with others. People who consistently sleep well show stronger emotional regulation in studies. They score higher on agreeableness measures in personality assessments. And here's the encouraging part. Even small improvements in sleep can recalibrate mood and perspective. Earlier bedtimes, darker rooms, slower, quieter evenings, these simple changes can make a real difference. Sleep acts like nightly maintenance for your brain. It sweeps away metabolic waste from neurons. It restores chemical harmony to your neural networks. Without adequate sleep, our minds become fogged and reactive. We're running on empty, responding from a place of depletion. With good sleep, we rediscover kindness in ourselves. We find our humor returning. We gain perspective on problems that seemed overwhelming the day before. Every complete dream cycle becomes a rehearsal for emotional balance, gently reminding us that a well-rested brain is not just sharper and more focused, it's also gentler and more compassionate. The gut-brain connection. Your gut bacteria may actually influence mood and personality stability. This is one of the most exciting frontiers in neuroscience research. The microbiome living inside your intestines forms a complex ecosystem, a miniature world of trillions of organisms. And this ecosystem communicates directly with your brain through the vagus nerve and through chemical messengers that travel through your bloodstream. Certain bacterial species actually produce neurotransmitters. They manufacture serotonin and GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, which influence anxiety levels, optimism, and psychological resilience. When this inner microbial environment is balanced and healthy, the brain receives calmer, more stable signals. When the microbiome is disrupted, stress responses heighten, mood becomes more volatile. Emerging studies on probiotics suggest that deliberately altering gut composition can shift emotional tone in subtle but meaningful ways. It can even influence social behavior. It's as if an unseen chorus of microbes is contributing to the background soundtrack of your personality. Your mood, your patience, your confidence, these aren't only products of thought and conscious mental processes. They're also products of digestion, of diet, of the microbial harmony living within you. Within the quiet depths of your gut, trillions upon trillions of tiny organisms are humming along with your nervous system. They're composing part of the music that makes you feel like yourself from day to day. Introversion and extroversion explained. Introverts actually process dopamine differently from extroverts. This explains so much about the differences we see between personality types. Dopamine is often called the feel-good chemical, but its real job is actually about motivation and reward-seeking behavior. Brains that lean extroverted tend to respond to dopamine like it's a bright green light saying go, go, go. Loud settings, surprises, fast-moving social energy, new faces, new chances and opportunities, all of these register as exciting and deeply pleasurable to the extroverted nervous system. For introverted brains, that same flood of stimulation can feel overwhelming. It can even feel stressful, like the volume of life is simply turned up too high. It's not that introverts dislike these things necessarily. It's that their nervous systems process them as more intense, more demanding of energy. Introverts often find that calm focus, depth of thought, and meaningful one-on-one conversation feel more nourishing than thrill-seeking or constant stimulation. This is partly because they rely more on slower, quieter neurochemical reward systems. These systems are linked to reflection and deep understanding rather than constant novelty-seeking. So it's not that introverts secretly want to be alone all the time because they dislike people. That's a misunderstanding. It's that their nervous systems are tuned to a softer, quieter game setting. They find deep comfort and restoration in stillness, in gentle spaces, in connection that breathes slowly instead of shouting constantly for attention. Both patterns, introversion and extroversion, are intelligent adaptations in their own way. One explores outward, seeking engagement with the external world. The other explores inward, seeking richness in the internal landscape. Neither is superior. They're simply different instruments playing different but equally beautiful music. Brain regions and traits. The prefrontal cortex is more active in highly conscientious people. The prefrontal cortex sits just behind your forehead. It's one of the most recently evolved parts of the human brain. This region helps you plan ahead, resist immediate temptation, and stay organized in a complicated world that constantly tries to drag your attention in every possible direction. People who rate highly on conscientiousness, meaning they're reliable, structured, careful, and they follow through on commitments, these people tend to show stronger baseline engagement in this crucial brain region. That means their mental braking system stays more readily available. Impulses don't always turn straight into actions automatically. Conscientious people pause, they evaluate, they ask themselves important questions like, is this wise? Is this aligned with my values? What are the consequences of this choice? This constant micro-regulation, happening beneath conscious awareness, is part of why conscientious people are often described as dependable and trustworthy. They anticipate consequences before chaos arrives. They see the potential problems before things fall apart. But there's a cost to this vigilance, this constant forward planning. Living in a state of perpetual responsibility can create internal pressure. It can generate guilt when things go wrong. It can create a persistent fear of letting others down. But it also supports long-term goals beautifully. It enables healthy routines to take root. It builds self-respect that comes from knowing you keep your word. The prefrontal cortex, in a very real way, is the quiet guardian of promise-keeping, of integrity, of following through on what you said you'd do. People who score high on openness to experience have more cross-brain connectivity. Openness to experience is the personality dimension most strongly linked to curiosity, imagination, love of unusual ideas, and a genuine hunger for novelty and new experiences. People high in openness often show richer, more dynamic communication between brain regions that usually stay somewhat separate in other people's brains. Areas that handle logic and analysis begin to talk more fluidly with areas that handle emotion and feeling. Sensory regions that process sound and color share information more freely with regions that handle memory and language. This creates a remarkably flexible inner landscape where unexpected combinations of thought can emerge naturally. Someone with high openness might hear a piece of music and instantly see colors dancing in their mind's eye. This is called synesthesia when it's strong. Or they might hear a single sentence and suddenly leap to a whole new idea about how the world could work differently. This constant blending and recombining also explains why highly open people tolerate uncertainty and ambiguity so well. Where others see confusion and feel uncomfortable, they feel possibility and potential. Their brain is literally built to remix information. It's a creativity engine that keeps generating new maps of reality, new ways of understanding experience. Memory and emotion. Neuroticism is linked to stronger emotional memory traces. Neuroticism refers to a tendency toward worry, emotional tension, or mood swings. It's sometimes treated like a character flaw, but in reality, it reflects a particular nervous system strategy that evolved for good reasons. In people who score high on neuroticism, emotional experiences, especially painful or threatening ones, are often laid down in memory more vividly and more durably than in other people. The regions of the brain that help store memories and those that detect potential danger talk to each other with extra intensity in neurotic individuals. The result is that embarrassment, loss, rejection, and fear can echo for a remarkably long time. These memories don't fade easily. That makes daily life harder at times because even small stresses can feel deeply personal and urgent. Minor setbacks can feel like major catastrophes. But this heightened emotional recall also grants something genuinely powerful. It creates rapid awareness of potential harm before it fully materializes. It builds sensitivity to social tension that others might miss. It develops an ability to notice dishonesty or insincerity in others. This trait pushes the mind to scan constantly for patterns, to anticipate problems before they fully bloom into crises. What looks from the outside like simple nervousness is also a form of deep vigilance, of protective awareness. Highly neurotic people are often the ones who notice what's wrong before anyone else does, who sense danger approaching while others remain oblivious. Social connection and personality. Highly agreeable people show more synchronized brain activity with others. Agreeableness describes kindness, warmth, patience, and a genuine willingness to cooperate rather than dominate in social situations. When agreeable people interact with others, something fascinating happens in their brains. Their neural rhythms tend to slip into a kind of resonance with the people around them. Neural activity in regions linked to empathy, such as areas that read facial expressions and emotional tone, begins to mirror the other person's patterns. Scientists sometimes call this neural coupling or synchronization. You can think of it as two nervous systems stepping into the same emotional room together. They're sharing a space, breathing the same air, feeling similar rhythms. That alignment makes it easier for agreeable people to predict others' needs, to reduce conflict before it escalates, and to offer genuine comfort when someone is struggling. It also explains why agreeable people can feel absolutely drained after spending time in tense or angry environments. Their minds don't just observe distress from a comfortable distance. They partially absorb it. They take it into their own nervous systems. The gift of agreeableness is deep connection and natural peacekeeping ability. The cost is sometimes emotional exhaustion, compassion fatigue, or difficulty setting boundaries. Underneath it all is a nervous system that keeps quietly saying, "I want us to be all right together. I want harmony. I want peace between us." Unconscious signals. Your handwriting may reveal small clues about your temperament. Handwriting is motor behavior made visible. It's muscle tension plus nervous system activation plus ingrained habit, all frozen in time on a page. While graphology in the fortune-telling sense isn't well supported by rigorous science, some subtle connections between writing style and temperament do appear consistently in research. People who write with heavy pressure, who press down hard on the page, sometimes score higher on measures of emotional intensity and urgency. It's as if their emotional signals move forcefully through their bodies right into their hands and onto paper. People with small, tight, very controlled letter formations often show tendencies toward caution, inhibition, or extremely careful attention to detail. Meanwhile, very open, rounded, loose script can correlate, though weakly, with sociability and spontaneity, with a more relaxed approach to life. Even the slant of handwriting seems to matter. A forward lean can imply approach orientation, engagement with the world, eagerness to connect. A backward lean can signal reserve, a pulling back, a more defensive stance toward experience. None of this is destiny written in ink, but it's a fascinating reminder that the brain is fundamentally physical. Thoughts don't just live as abstract ideas floating in consciousness. They travel through shoulders, down arms, into wrists and fingertips. Every loop and curve you make when writing is a physical echo of how you manage energy and emotion in that moment. Personality can shift dramatically after brain injury or stroke. This is one of the most profound and sometimes heartbreaking aspects of neuroscience. When injury touches the brain, It can alter not only memory and physical movement, but the very patterns that make someone feel like themselves, that make them recognizable to people who love them. A calm, steady person can become impulsive and inappropriately blunt after certain types of brain damage. A social and expressive person can become quiet, withdrawn, emotionally flat. Sometimes the reverse happens too. Someone who used to fear risk and avoid confrontation becomes bold, outspoken, even reckless in their decisiveness. Damage in areas such as the frontal lobes can weaken social inhibition and self-monitoring. This changes how the person expresses anger, desire, or sadness. They might say things they would never have said before, act in ways that seem completely out of character. This can be deeply painful for loved ones who may feel like they're talking to the same physical body, but not quite the same person anymore. The essence seems changed. And yet, there's another side to this story. The brain possesses remarkable plasticity, especially with support and rehabilitation. Over time, months and years, new neural pathways can form. Old connections can partially restore themselves. Aspects of the old personality can return, or elements can reassemble themselves into something gently new, something adapted to the new reality. The self, it turns out, is not a fixed statue carved permanently in neural stone. It's a moving pattern, a dynamic process that can break under trauma, heal with time and care, and reconfigure itself into new forms while still maintaining some thread of continuity. Preferences and personality. Musical preferences correlate remarkably with personality patterns across cultures. Music is emotion made audible. It's feeling translated into sound waves that move through air and into your ears and deep into your brain. Fast, high-energy music with a heavy, driving beat tends to appeal more to people who score high in extroversion and sensation-seeking. Slow, introspective, lyrically complex music speaks more deeply to introverted and naturally reflective listeners. People high in openness to experience are drawn toward unusual harmonies, experimental structures, or entirely new genres that most people haven't even heard of yet. They love the unfamiliar, the strange, the avant-garde. Conscientious people often prefer music that feels orderly, polished, and satisfyingly predictable. They enjoy structure and craftsmanship in their musical choices. What makes this absolutely astonishing is that these links appear not only in a single country or language group. They show up again and again across wildly different cultural backgrounds. Personality expresses itself through what feels good to your particular nervous system, and music is pure nutrition for the nervous system. The songs you return to when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, these aren't random choices. They're regulation tools. They're medicine. They're how your emotional circuitry reminds itself what safety feels like, what joy feels like, what being yourself feels like. Even your physical walk can signal traits like dominance or openness. Before we even open our mouths to speak, before we say a single word, other people are reading us. They're gathering information from our bodies. Posture, stride length, head position, shoulder looseness, walking pace, rhythm, and how much physical space we claim with our movement, all of these offer immediate clues to observers. People who move with long, confident steps, lifted chest, and steady forward gaze are often read as confident, dominant, sometimes even intimidating. People who walk with a relaxed sway, softer shoulders, and more fluid packing are often read as approachable, creative, open-minded, friendly. Fast, jerky walking with visible tension in the neck and shoulders can be interpreted as anxious, stressed, impatient, or overwhelmed. These snap judgments aren't always accurate, of course. We all know that, but the human brain is built to judge potential threat and trustworthiness almost instantly, in milliseconds. Your gait, your way of moving through space, broadcasts your current state. It broadcasts your intentions, consciously or not. Long before language evolved in our species, long before humans could speak in words, bodies were already talking to each other. You're sending signals everywhere you go without even trying, in every hallway, on every sidewalk, simply by how you inhabit gravity and move through space. The pitch of your voice may unconsciously communicate confidence to others. Your voice is a physical event, not just a mental one. Air leaves your lungs, passes over vibrating vocal folds in your throat, resonates through the cavities of your chest and head, and emerges shaped by your tongue and lips into recognizable speech. When someone feels calm and certain, genuinely confident, the muscles of the throat tend to stay relaxed and open. This often produces a slightly deeper, steadier tone that listeners immediately interpret as grounded and authoritative. It doesn't even matter if the speaker actually has more knowledge or expertise. The tone itself communicates certainty. When someone is anxious or uncertain, tiny muscles tense up unconsciously. Airflow changes subtly. The pitch rises slightly. Listeners pick up on that tension, often quite unfairly, and interpret it as insecurity or lack of knowledge. This response happens fast, beneath conscious awareness. People also subtly mirror one another in conversation, dropping or raising their own pitch to try to match and sync with the other person's social energy. In that way, confidence is sometimes less about the content of what you're saying and more about vocal resonance, about the physical qualities of sound. Your nervous system is always listening beneath the words themselves, constantly searching the voice of others for signals of safety and authority, for trustworthiness and competence. Subtle signals. Certain smells can make people appear more trustworthy to others. This is remarkable. Scent travels a unique path into the brain, moving straight into regions that handle emotion and memory, skipping the slower, more logical filters that process other types of information. Natural human body odor, which we often think of negatively, actually carries tiny chemical signals related to stress hormones and immune system markers. When someone is genuinely calm, healthy, and low in stress, those chemical traces can create an unconscious sense of safety and familiarity in people nearby. Certain neutral, clean, or subtly warm scents can also increase perceived trustworthiness in first impressions, even before a single word is exchanged between people. This plays out in social bonding, in early romantic attraction, and even in business cooperation and teamwork. We tend to feel more comfortable and trusting with people whose scent signature quietly signals steadiness and health. This process doesn't feel mystical or magical when you understand what the brain is actually doing beneath awareness. It's simply scanning for biological clues, asking a very simple, ancient question that has mattered for millions of years. Am I safe with this person? Long before you consciously decide whether you like someone, whether you trust them, your sense of smell has already gathered data and cast its vote. Eye contact duration influences how assertive someone seems to others. Eye contact is truly a biological negotiation happening in real time. Hold a gaze too briefly, and you can seem nervous, submissive, disengaged, or dishonest. Hold it too long, though, and you can seem challenging, overly intense, or even subtly aggressive. In the middle lies a range of eye contact duration that feels confident and respectful to most people. It signals engagement without aggression. Brains react very strongly during direct eye contact. Heart rate can change noticeably. Pupils can widen. Reward circuits and threat circuits can both activate simultaneously, which is part of why sustained eye contact can feel simultaneously thrilling and stressful. Cultural background matters enormously here because different cultures assign very different meanings to direct gaze. What feels respectful in one culture may feel rude in another, but the underlying biology is astonishingly ancient and deep. We are social primates, after all, and among primates generally, the eyes function as social lightning, as powerful communicators of intention. People who manage eye contact with calm, natural timing are often judged as self-assured, capable, even leader-like, without ever having to explicitly say those words out loud. The eyes tell everyone in the room who believes they belong there, who feels confident in their right to space and attention. Micro-expressions can reveal genuine emotion faster than conscious thought. A micro-expression is a tiny, involuntary flicker of facial muscle activity that appears and vanishes in less than the time it takes to blink your eyes. We're talking fractions of a second. These lightning-fast flashes can betray anger, contempt, surprise, fear, disgust, or joy, even when a person is consciously trying to hide those reactions from others. The brain launches the emotional response automatically before conscious control has time to step in and smooth it over or censor it entirely. That means you sometimes glimpse what someone truly felt for just a split second before they decide what face to show you, what emotion to present to the social world. People who are naturally very empathetic or socially observant become remarkably skilled at picking up these lightning-fast cues, often without realizing they're doing it. Law enforcement professionals and clinical psychologists sometimes receive training to notice micro-expressions deliberately, but in reality, most people already read them at an intuitive gut level. It's that moment when you just somehow feel that someone isn't actually fine, even though they clearly said the words, "I'm fine, don't worry about me." Their face, in that fraction of a second, already told you the deeper truth. Language and personality. Your choice of words reflects deep personality dimensions that you might not even be aware of. Language is not only about what we say, the content. It's about how we carve thought into sound, how we structure meaning, what we choose to emphasize. Extroverted people tend to use more social words, more excitement words, more high-energy vocabulary. Introverted people often use language that's more precise, more introspective, more focused on sensory details and internal experience. Highly agreeable people naturally lean toward words of care, warmth, and emotional connection. Meanwhile, highly analytical people lean towards structure words, logic words, vocabulary about control and systems. Even tiny function words, those small bridge words like and, or, but, because, if, these can hint at how someone organizes and processes experience in their mind. These subtle patterns show up consistently in text messages, in emails, in casual face-to-face conversation. They tend to stay stable over long periods of time because they reflect stable underlying habits of attention. The mind naturally pays attention to what matters most to it, what it values, what it notices in the world. And then the mouth, the fingers typing, simply follow that attentional bias. In that way, every sentence you speak or write is a small behavioral fingerprint. You cannot help revealing how you think, what you care about, how you see reality. People can sometimes predict personality traits surprisingly accurately just by seeing your face. Humans are remarkably fast, almost shockingly fast, at forming first impressions of others. Within just a fraction of a second of seeing someone's face for the first time, people tend to form guesses about that person's warmth, dominance, openness, and even honesty. These lightning-fast judgments are far from perfect. They can absolutely be biased, unfair, or completely wrong. But what's fascinating is how surprisingly consistent they are across different strangers looking at the same face. Some of this rapid judgment comes from reading micro-tensions in facial muscles, tiny variations in posture, and fleeting expressions that pass across features. Some of it comes from subtle structural cues related to hormone exposure during development, which can leave lasting traces in things like jawline shape, eye spacing, and brow structure. The brain evolved over millions of years to make these snap judgments because in our deep evolutionary past, choosing whom to trust, whom to approach, whom to avoid, these were literal survival questions. Making the right call quickly could mean the difference between safety and danger. What's remarkable and sometimes troubling is that even today, in our modern world, employers, jurors, romantic partners, all of us still respond powerfully to these instant impressions formed in milliseconds. Your face is not just your physical appearance. It's treated by other people's nervous systems as early data, as preliminary information about how to approach you, whether to trust you, whether to feel safe around you. Facial asymmetry. The left and right sides of your face can actually show different emotions simultaneously. This is truly extraordinary. The two halves of the brain don't express emotion in exactly the same way, and each hemisphere of the brain largely controls the opposite side of the face. This creates subtle but real emotional asymmetry in facial expressions. In many people, the left side of the face shows slightly stronger, more genuine feeling, especially emotions like sadness or tenderness. This happens because the left side of the face is more directly shaped by the right hemisphere of the brain, which is heavily involved in emotional processing and expression. Portrait painters throughout history, especially in classical and Renaissance styles, often posed their subjects with the left cheek angled slightly toward the viewer. They did this without consciously knowing the neuroscience behind it. They simply felt intuitively that this angle captured something more soulful, more revealing, more deeply human about their subject. You can actually test this phenomenon yourself. Try covering one half of a photographed face with your hand, and then switch to cover the other half. Very often, the two sides feel subtly like two different people, two different emotional states existing simultaneously in one person. We don't wear one single unified expression across our entire face. We actually wear two parallel, slightly different versions of our inner emotional life at once, displayed side by side for anyone who looks carefully enough to notice. Animals and personality. Animals can detect aspects of human personality through scent and vocal tone. Many animals, especially dogs who have evolved alongside humans for thousands of years, are astonishingly sensitive to chemical and vocal signals that humans barely notice consciously. Dogs can distinguish by scent alone between sweat collected from you during calm, relaxed states and sweat collected during anxious or fearful states, and they measurably change their own behavior in response to these chemical signals. They approach differently, they react differently. They also respond very differently to voices that carry relaxed, confident rhythm compared to voices that carry agitation, tension, or fear. The dog hears not just your words but the emotional music beneath them. Horses, too, are remarkably responsive to human body tension and vocal energy, often mirroring stress or settling peacefully when a human genuinely settles. This means your personality is not just something other people experience and respond to. It's something other species can read in you, can sense in you. The animal is constantly, quietly listening to the music of your nervous system, picking up signals you don't even know you're broadcasting. If you are genuinely kind, gentle, patient, and non-threatening in your core emotional state, many animals will approach more willingly. This isn't magic or mysticism. It's simply that their survival instincts, finely tuned over evolutionary time, tell them that your presence tends to regulate their world, to calm it, rather than disturb it or threaten it. You become, to them, a source of safety rather than stress. Digital personality. Digital avatars often mirror our real personalities more than we consciously realize. When people create online characters, virtual representations, or social media profiles, they often think they're inventing a completely new self, trying on a different identity. But what quietly happens instead, more often than not, is psychological projection. Introverted people are statistically more likely to design avatars that closely resemble their actual appearance or that present qualities of honesty and approachability. They seek authenticity even in virtual space. Extroverted people, by contrast, experiment much more freely with stylization, with dramatic colors, bold clothing choices, or postures that signal charisma, confidence, and active attention-seeking. People who feel powerful in their lives tend to choose taller avatars or sharper, more angular-looking characters. People who feel vulnerable or uncertain often choose softer shapes, gentler eyes, warmer color palettes that suggest approachability and safety. Even the posture of a virtual character, whether it's open and expansive versus closed and guarded, tracks closely with real-world self-esteem and confidence levels. In other words, the avatar you create becomes an emotional mood map. It's not random decoration or meaningless play. It's actually an X-ray of your identity as you wish to feel, or as you believe you truly are behind the protective shyness of daily life. Online behavior patterns can actually predict personality better than your friends can in some studies. What you like, what you share and repost, how often you comment on things, which topics consistently hold your attention, how you use language in digital spaces, all of this leaves a behavioral trace, a digital footprint of who you are. This trace can be analyzed by algorithms, by pattern recognition systems, to estimate broad personality traits such as openness, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and emotional stability. In some fascinating studies, these algorithmic predictions match people's self-report questionnaires more closely than the guesses made by coworkers or even casual friends. That might sound unsettling at first, maybe even disturbing, but it actually makes sense when you think about it. Algorithms aren't distracted by surface charm or recent events. They're not swayed by one memorable conversation. They're tracking pure repetition, consistent patterns over time. Personality shows itself most clearly and reliably in what you choose again and again and again over months and years. Over long stretches of time, your digital life becomes a remarkably accurate behavioral mirror. It reflects not who you said you were in a formal job interview or on a first date, but how you actually behave when you're relaxed, unfiltered, just being yourself in casual moments. What feels casual and meaningless to you, what feels like just scrolling or browsing, is to a pattern-seeking system actually a detailed map of your psychological signature, of what makes you distinctly you. Even the specific way you use emojis says something revealing about your character. Emojis began as tiny, simple decorations for text messages, little visual flourishes, but they've grown into something much more significant. They've become emotional stand-ins for tone of voice, for body language, for facial expressions we can't show through typed words alone. People high in agreeableness tend to use warm, affiliative emojis frequently, things like smiling faces, hearts, hugs. They do this because they genuinely want to maintain harmony and reassure others that their message is friendly, that there's no hidden hostility or coldness. People high in openness to experience tend to use weirder, more playful, more unusual emojis. Sometimes they combine them in creative, unexpected ways to invent entirely new shades of meaning that aren't in any dictionary. People high in conscientiousness often use emojis much more sparingly and carefully. They choose clarity and precision over decorative flourish. They want their meaning to be unmistakable. Even the sheer frequency of emoji use matters and reveals personality. Heavy use in professional spaces, in work emails for instance, can signal comfort with informality, which often overlaps with extroversion and social boldness, with confidence in breaking minor social conventions. In that sense, you're not just typing out feelings randomly. You're actively broadcasting how you relate to others, how you soften potentially harsh edges in communication, how you invite emotional closeness, and how you manage appropriate emotional distance in digital space. Time perception. Personality actually shapes how time subjectively feels to you. For some people, a single hour feels long enough to hold a complete, vivid memory. For others, entire days slip by almost unnoticed, as if time itself has softened its edges and become fluid. Personality quietly alters this fundamental rhythm of experiencing duration. Conscientious people tend to experience time as highly structured and measurable. They divide it mentally into careful portions that fit neatly into their plans and schedules. Time is something to be managed, organized, used wisely. Open and imaginative minds, by contrast, experience time much more fluidly, more elastically. For them, moments can melt together in states of creative flow. The boundaries between past, present, and future feel softer, less rigid. Those with higher baseline levels of anxiety may feel each second stretch endlessly, especially when waiting or worrying. Time drags painfully. Meanwhile, calm temperaments let time glide by relatively unnoticed. They're not constantly checking the clock or counting minutes. Scientists studying temporal perception find that attention, emotion, and self-awareness all bend time's subjective texture in fascinating ways. When you're alert and sharply focused on something, moments tend to expand. They feel longer, richer, more detailed. When you're absorbed in enjoyable activity or feeling joyful, those same minutes vanish like smoke. They disappear before you notice them passing. Personality sets the internal tempo, the background rhythm, that defines the experiential pace of an entire lifetime. It's not the clock on the wall that moves faster or slower. It's your mind's pulse, your internal metronome, that changes its fundamental song. Risk-takers tend to perceive time as moving faster than cautious people do. Adventurous personalities, people drawn to novelty and challenge, often feel that life speeds past in bright, quick, thrilling flashes. When risk-takers face challenge or novelty, their bodies release surges of adrenaline and dopamine. This sharpens focus dramatically, but shortens the subjective feeling of how long an event actually lasts. This happens because intense stimulation floods working memory with massive amounts of information, effectively compressing the sense of duration. The result over a lifetime is a life that feels thrilling, exciting, vivid, but also somehow fleeting, like it's passing too quickly. These individuals are naturally drawn to experiences that stretch emotion to its limits and ignite sharp attention. They don't linger long in hesitation or careful planning. They dive directly into immediacy, into the present moment. By contrast, cautious minds stretch moments out through anticipation and careful analysis. They think through possibilities. Time feels slower, more measured to them. The difference here is not just psychological or about attitude. It's physiological, rooted in patterns of arousal and neural rhythm. Risk-takers live their lives in a kind of fast-forward mode, not because they literally hurry through activities, but because excitement and stimulation collapse the perceived space between moments. Their reward for this is vividness, a powerful sense that every second burns brighter and more intensely, even if paradoxically it passes in what feels like a blur when remembered later. Conscientious people tend to plan much further into the future than impulsive people. Some personalities naturally look ahead constantly, as though their thoughts naturally lean toward the distant horizon. Conscientious people organize time like careful gardeners preparing soil many months before the first bloom appears. Their prefrontal cortex, that crucial region of the brain that manages long-term goals and delayed rewards, stays more consistently active during decisions about the future. This creates a deep sense of structure and reliability in their lives, but it also creates the weight of constant awareness, of always thinking ahead. They picture outcomes before those outcomes happen. They're always balancing duty against immediate desire. For them, discipline is not experienced as punishment or deprivation. It's actually a source of comfort. By planning carefully, they soothe the anxiety of uncertainty. They create order in a chaotic world. This ability to vividly imagine steps before they're taken makes conscientious people remarkably effective at leadership, at sustained study, at perseverance through difficulty. Yet even in their precision and planning lies deep humanity. When plans inevitably shift, when life throws unexpected curveballs, they adapt with quiet determination and flexibility. Conscientiousness may make time feel linear and purposeful, but beneath that structure is a soft rhythm of genuine care, guiding choices toward meaning and purpose, rather than mere external success. Neurotic people experience much more mental time travel into the past. For those whose emotions run deep and changeable, who feel things intensely, time is not experienced as a straight path forward into the future. It's more like a loop that constantly bends backward toward what has already happened. People high in neuroticism often revisit memories, reliving them in vivid sensory detail that can feel almost as real as the original experience. The emotional centers of their brains remain active during memory recall, so old experiences genuinely feel fresh, almost present, as if they're happening again right now. This tendency evolved as an adaptive way to anticipate danger, to learn from past mistakes. Yet it can trap the mind in an exhausting replay loop. Each remembered failure or loss becomes a kind of rehearsal for future safety, a way of preparing for potential threats. But within that same sensitivity lies remarkable empathy and insight. Those who think often and deeply about the past tend to understand other people with unusual depth and nuance because they're so practiced in examining feeling, in turning experience over and looking at it from every angle. Their minds function as both mirror and echo, constantly reflecting what was while actively shaping what will be. With awareness and often with therapeutic support, their natural introspection can become wisdom, turning regret into reflection and painful memory into hard-earned meaning. Extroverts estimate durations more optimistically than introverts do. The people who thrive on energy and social interaction often feel that time is generous, that there's always enough of it. Extroverts consistently tend to underestimate how long tasks will actually take, believing there will always be space for more activities, more socializing, more experiences. Their brains, rich in dopamine activity, naturally tilt toward anticipation and reward. The excitement of what might happen, of possibilities, overshadows practical concern for limits and constraints. This optimism fuels tremendous enthusiasm and social engagement, keeping life full of movement and activity. When an extrovert cheerfully says, "just a minute," it often becomes 10 minutes or 15 because joy and engagement stretch their sense of capacity. Time feels expandable to them. Introverts, who experience events with deeper processing and more careful awareness, tend to measure time much more accurately. They're more realistic about duration. Extroverts, though, benefit greatly from their flexible perception of time. It allows them to take social risks, to leap into new situations, to fill life with stories and memories. For them, the clock is experienced as a companion, not a constraint. The hours seem shorter because each one shines so brightly before it slips away into memory. Memory and personality. The way you remember your own past reflects your personality in profound ways. Memory is not a video recording. It's a mosaic made by emotion, by interpretation, by what matters to you. Optimistic minds arrange their memory pieces into patterns of triumph and growth. They transform hardships into valuable lessons and struggles into narratives of perseverance and eventual pride. Pessimistic or cautious personalities recall more of the difficulties, more of what went wrong. They use these memories as guides for self-protection, as warnings about what to avoid in the future. Highly agreeable people tend to hold onto moments of kindness and connection most vividly. These are the memories that shine brightest for them. Meanwhile, ambitious minds focus intensely on goals they achieved, or sometimes painfully, goals they missed. The result is not an objective record of what happened. It's a narrative actively shaped by temperament. Every single act of remembering is actually a form of storytelling, where your personality chooses which details deserve light and emphasis, and which fade into shadow and are forgotten. Scientists find that this emotional bias during recall actually helps maintain a coherent sense of identity over time. The memories you cherish, that you return to, are direct reflections of the values you live by, of what matters most to you. The past itself doesn't change, of course. The events happened as they happened, but the way you hold those events in memory, the way you frame them and interpret them, determines whether your past becomes a weight dragging you down, a wise teacher guiding you forward, or a spark of inspiration lighting your way. Some people literally imagine the future more vividly than others do. When asked to picture a future moment, some minds see every detail with remarkable clarity. The light, the colors, even the imagined sound of footsteps or voices. Others glimpse only faint outlines, vague impressions. This striking difference comes from how brain networks for imagination and memory communicate with each other. People high in openness and conscientiousness show stronger connections between the hippocampus, which stores and organizes past experiences, and the visual cortex, which paints new scenes in the mind's eye. They essentially borrow fragments of memory to build future scenes, almost as if they're rehearsing reality before it happens. Those who imagine vividly often plan more effectively and feel stronger motivation, because their minds experience goals as already half real, as tangible and achievable. Yet vivid imagination can also amplify worry and anxiety when those future visions turn dark, when the mind paints catastrophes instead of successes. The same neural gift that fuels creativity and planning can also nurture anxiety and rumination. In every mind, imagination functions as both a map showing possible futures and a mirror revealing not just what we hope to see, but how we fundamentally see ourselves becoming, transforming, growing over time. Optimists recall fewer failures even when explicitly reminded of them. Ask an optimistic person about a significant setback in their past, and they might actually smile slightly, as if the failure belonged to someone else entirely, as if it's a distant story that doesn't define them. Their brains, particularly regions that regulate emotion and memory consolidation, naturally dampen the emotional sting of negative memories over time. This selective recall helps maintain resilience and hope even in difficult circumstances. It's not denial or dishonesty, it's adaptation. By focusing on progress rather than pain, on growth rather than failure, they keep motivation alive and moving forward. Pessimists, on the other hand, remember errors much more vividly and in greater detail, treating each one as a valuable cautionary tale for future decisions. While this careful attention to past mistakes helps them prepare for future difficulties, it can also weigh them down emotionally, creating a sense of burden. Optimists prune their memory gardens like skilled gardeners, letting wilted moments fade naturally to make room for new growth and possibility. Over time, this bias toward positive recall actively shapes mood, confidence, and even physical health outcomes. The world they inhabit is no objectively brighter than anyone else's, but their minds paint it with lighter tones, with warmer colors, remembering the sunrise more vividly than the storm, the laughter more than the tears. Pessimists focus on possible dangers, even in objectively safe environments. The human brain evolved over millions of years to detect threat before pleasure, to notice danger before opportunity. And in some people, that ancient vigilance never turns off, never rests. Those with more pessimistic tendencies experience heightened activity in the amygdala, which stays alert to potential loss or risk even when there's no immediate danger. They imagine obstacles long before those obstacles appear. They rehearse solutions to problems that may never actually come. This constant scanning can make the world feel uncertain and threatening, yet it also provides valuable foresight and caution. Many successful engineers, planners, and safety experts thrive precisely because of this precise awareness, this ability to see what could go wrong. However, if left unchecked, if it becomes too intense, this vigilance narrows the field of perception until even genuine opportunity starts to look like hidden danger. Training the mind to consciously notice safety, beauty, and kindness restores necessary balance. Then vigilance evolves into discernment, and caution transforms into wisdom rather than paralysis. The pessimistic mind does not seek misery. It seeks control and safety in a world that often refuses to be controlled. Identity and change. Your sense of self-continuity links directly to your personality stability over time. Imagine your life as a book written chapter by chapter, year by year. For some people, the story feels remarkably seamless, coherent. There's a clear through line. For others, it reads more like a series of unrelated tales, different characters with the same name. This feeling of connectedness through time is called self-continuity, and it depends partly on personality structure. Emotionally stable individuals tend to maintain a strong thread of identity. They use memory to integrate past experiences into present goals and future aspirations. Everything feels connected. Those high in openness or neuroticism may feel themselves change more drastically from one year to the next. They might look back and barely recognize who they were 5 or 10 years ago. Scientists find that this difference involves the medial prefrontal cortex, which binds memories to the sense of self, creating that feeling of "this is me, this has always been me." When that connection is steady and strong, personality feels grounded and reliable. When it shifts frequently, life becomes an ongoing act of reinvention and rediscovery. Both states have their own beauty. One offers calm and consistency, the other offers renewal and growth. The self, after all, is not fixed in stone. It's more like a river that remembers its source even as it keeps flowing forward, always moving, always changing, yet somehow remaining itself. Personality influences how strongly you feel emotions moment to moment. Not all hearts beat with the same intensity. Not everyone experiences feeling with the same volume. Extroverts often experience joy and excitement with greater force, their reward circuits glowing like bright lanterns in the dark. People high in neuroticism feel pain and worry more sharply, more acutely. Their amygdala holds onto emotion longer, turning it over, examining it. Agreeable individuals absorb others' feelings through their mirror systems, sensing happiness and sorrow as if through shared skin, as if emotions are contagious. Conscientious people modulate emotion with thought, calming themselves through control and perspective, through rational analysis. These differences ensure diversity in how humanity collectively reacts to life's experiences. Some people carry sunlight wherever they go, lifting others. Others carry shelter, providing protection and careful thought. Together they create balance in communities and relationships. The strength of feeling is neither gift nor flaw. It's texture. It's the particular color of your inner life. Emotion moves through each personality like a unique melody, composed by the structure of the mind but performed through lived experience. In every face you meet, emotions music plays differently, reminding us that even in a single shared moment, the human heart holds infinite variety, infinite ways of feeling alive. Brain responses. Extroverts show stronger reactions to rewards than introverts do. When opportunity glimmers on the horizon, when something good becomes possible, extroverted minds light up with anticipation before that good thing even arrives. Their dopamine systems respond eagerly to novelty and anticipation, making social experiences and challenges feel genuinely invigorating and energizing. This neural sensitivity drives them to explore, to reach out to others, and to act quickly on curiosity. The world rewards their enthusiasm with connection and discovery, with new relationships and experiences. Introverts feel reward too, absolutely, but their satisfaction often comes later, arriving during reflection or through mastery, through deep understanding. Extroverts live at a faster tempo, chasing possibilities with bright confidence and visible enthusiasm. This optimism can sometimes lead to overcommitment or unnecessary risk-taking, yet it also propels progress and social cohesion. Each time an extrovert celebrates or shares genuine excitement, the energy spreads naturally, lifting those around them. Their joy is genuinely contagious, and evolution seems to have favored that light, that spark. The reward itself often matters less than the sparkle of pursuit, the way extroverts make living look like celebration, like an adventure worth having. Neuroticism amplifies threat perception in the amygdala more than other traits do. Within the brain, the amygdala functions as the guardian of safety, sounding the alarm at any sign of potential risk or danger. For people high in neuroticism, this guardian rarely rests. It rarely relaxes its watch. It fires more frequently, and with greater intensity, coloring perception with anxiety and caution that can feel overwhelming. A brief silence in conversation may feel like rejection. A harmless glance from a stranger may appear as judgment or hostility. The same system that once protected early humans from predators and environmental dangers now magnifies uncertainty in modern life, where actual physical threats are rare. Yet this sensitivity also grants remarkable intuition and perception. These individuals detect mood shifts, subtle social cues, and tiny inconsistencies long before others notice anything amiss. They're often the first to sense when something is wrong. Through therapy, mindfulness practice, or growing self-awareness, the amygdala's alarm can be softened and calibrated. Fear transforms into attentiveness. Anxiety becomes awareness. What seems like fragility is often actually heightened perception, a more sensitive instrument. The neurotic brain sees the world with vivid, detailed alertness, and when guided with care and compassion, that awareness becomes wisdom rather than constant worry. Agreeable people process empathy through distinct brain circuits that differ from less agreeable people. The brain's mirror systems activate naturally when we see another person in pain or joy, but in highly agreeable individuals, these circuits fire more intensely, more completely. Their anterior insular and anterior cingulate cortex, regions responsible for emotional resonance and empathy, engage as if the feelings of others were literally their own feelings. This deep empathy helps them build trust, create harmony, offer forgiveness, making them natural healers and peacekeepers in social settings. However, this gift also leaves them vulnerable to compassion fatigue and emotional exhaustion, since constant resonance can drain emotional energy reserves quickly. Their kindness is not simply a moral choice or learned behavior. It's biological. It comes from the way their brains naturally blend perception and compassion into one seamless automatic response. This sensitivity has shaped human cooperation across countless generations. Without such wiring, without people built this way, empathy might be merely an abstract idea instead of an instinct, instead of something felt directly and deeply in the body. Agreeable people remind us that understanding another's feeling is not always learned. Often it's felt directly, immediately, and deeply, as if hearts can truly touch across space. Creative individuals have more communication between emotional and cognitive brain regions. In creative minds, the boundaries between feeling and logical thought are thinner, more permeable. The limbic system, which generates emotion, communicates more freely with the prefrontal cortex where planning and reasoning occur. This neural crosstalk allows imagination to translate emotion into structure, into tangible form. Music, writing, invention, art, all of these creative acts thrive on this unusual union of impulse and order, of feeling and structure. Emotional charge fuels originality and novelty, while cognition gives it direction and form. Such brains tolerate ambiguity much longer than most, holding chaos without panic until meaningful patterns finally appear from the confusion. This flexibility produces ideas that seem spontaneous yet precise, wild yet somehow exactly right. Scientists suggest that this connectivity also explains why many creative individuals feel deeply and sometimes struggle with mood swings and emotional intensity. The same neural pathway that brings inspiration and creative breakthrough also intensifies difficult experiences. Creativity, then, is the brain's remarkable way of transforming raw emotion into coherent design, turning the private language of feeling into something that others can see, hear, touch, and understand. High openness is linked to richer, more intense sensory experiences. Open-minded individuals often describe the world around them as brighter, louder, or more richly textured than others perceive it. It's not that the world itself is different, it's that they perceive it differently. Their sensory and association regions communicate more strongly, allowing perception to blend seamlessly with imagination. A piece of music may shimmer with color in their mind. This is synesthesia when it's strong. A scent may evoke entire emotional landscapes and memories. This sensitivity naturally nurtures creativity and wonder, but it also leaves them more exposed to overstimulation and overwhelm. The same brain that notices subtle beauty in a ripple of light on water can also be overwhelmed by noise, crowds, or confusion. This vividness is simultaneously gift and challenge, a heightened awareness of the richness of existence. For these individuals, reality is never flat or ordinary. Every sound, every shade of color, every breath of air becomes part of a living symphony that the rest of us may only half hear. The world doesn't change for them. They simply feel it more fully, as though life itself hums closer to the skin, more immediate and intense. People with low openness may filter out subtle sensations automatically. Not every mind seeks novelty or unusual experiences. Those lower in openness value stability, clarity, and control. These are not limitations, they're preferences, strategies. Their brains act like efficient filters, tuning out minor distractions to maintain sharp focus on the familiar. This efficiency supports dependability and comfort. Predictability feels soothing to them, not boring. It anchors their sense of security in a chaotic world. In a rapidly changing world, these individuals provide the steadiness that progress often forgets it desperately needs. Their filtered perception doesn't mean they're less perceptive overall. It means they direct their attention wisely toward what they already trust, what has proven reliable. This focus allows mastery through repetition, excellence through precision, wisdom through consistency. While others chase surprise and novelty, they preserve balance and stability. In the ecosystem of human nature, they are the deep roots that hold the soil steady while the winds of novelty pass overhead. Their calm refusal to be swept away by every new trend keeps civilization grounded in the known, in the tested, in what actually works. The experience of awe. Some personalities experience awe more easily than others. Awe rises when the self meets something larger, something that dwarfs personal concerns. Whether it's the curve of a distant galaxy or the quiet perfection of a single leaf, awe has this power. People high in openness, humility, and curiosity tend to feel this profound emotion more readily. Their brains show lower activity in self-centered regions during awe and higher activity in sensory ones, allowing them to dissolve briefly into the vastness they perceive. Regular experiences of awe reduce stress measurably, foster deeper connection with others, and encourage altruism and generous behavior. These individuals don't need grand spectacles to be moved. Even a subtle shift of light through leaves or a sudden silence can awaken wonder in them. This sensitivity acts as a spiritual reflex, reminding the mind that it belongs to something immense and mysterious. Awe is not escape from reality, it's expansion of reality. It teaches humility without needing words. In a world that often races forward frantically, those who pause regularly in awe are the ones who remember how infinite and profound a single moment can actually be. The capacity for wonder correlates with mental flexibility and adaptability. People who still marvel at rainbows, at new ideas, at meaningful coincidences, these people tend to have flexible minds that adapt easily to change and uncertainty. Wonder arises when curiosity overcomes fear, when openness wins over defensiveness. The brain releases dopamine during these moments of wonder, encouraging exploration and continued learning. Individuals high in cognitive flexibility allow this openness to thrive naturally. They shift easily between logical analysis and imaginative possibility. They can hold uncertainty without frustration, which makes them more creative and resilient when facing challenges. This connection between wonder and adaptability means that amazement is not naive or childish. It's actually a sign of mental strength and health. The ability to say, "I don't know," and still feel joy, still feel curious, is one of the highest human capacities. Those who keep their sense of wonder alive live in a world that never stops unfolding, revealing, teaching. Their curiosity turns the unknown into an invitation rather than a threat. Wonder is the mind's quiet proof that growth is still possible, that you haven't stopped learning, haven't stopped becoming. Humor and personality. A person's sense of humor reveals more about their psyche than you might think. Laughter is a mirror held up to thought, to the way your mind works. The kind of humor a person enjoys reflects the way their mind organizes surprise, tension, and truth. Those who love wordplay and puns tend to process information quickly, delighting in unexpected incongruity. People drawn to gentle humor often possess high empathy, preferring jokes that unite rather than divide people. Dark humor correlates with emotional stability and intelligence, allowing people to confront pain with irony rather than fear, to look directly at what's difficult and find perspective. Every laugh is a release of energy once spent managing contradiction. It signals cognitive agility and emotional health. Humor binds groups together, softens hierarchy, and builds resilience. The joke itself matters less than the spark it reveals, the mind's ability to dance with discomfort, to play with reality. When someone laughs easily, it's not a sign of shallowness, it's a sign of adaptability. To laugh is to survive the absurdity of being human with grace, intelligence, and light. Dark humor appreciation correlates with intelligence and low aggression. People who enjoy dark humor are often more emotionally resilient and cognitively flexible than they appear on the surface. To find amusement in something grim, the brain must juggle irony, empathy, and logic all at once. It's a form of emotional multitasking that calls for sharp reasoning and a secure sense of inner safety. Studies show that those who appreciate morbid or taboo jokes tend to score higher on verbal intelligence tests and exhibit lower aggression in their behavior. Their laughter is not cruelty, it's distance perspective. It's a way to look at what frightens humanity and turn it into manageable absurdity. The mind reframes terror as pattern, tragedy as puzzle. This mental act releases tension rather than feeding hostility. Dark humor may not soften the world or make it gentler, but it gives the mind a tool to face what cannot be changed and still whisper, "I understand the darkness, and I am still here to laugh." Sarcasm activates complex reasoning regions in the brain. Sarcasm requires a mind nimble enough to recognize contradiction and context simultaneously. When someone uses a sarcastic tone, listeners must detect the literal statement, identify the mismatch between words and intention, and infer the hidden meaning beneath. Neuroimaging reveals that this mental dance activates parts of the prefrontal cortex responsible for perspective taking and social reasoning. It also engages the temporal lobes, which decode tone and nuance. In other words, sarcasm is a linguistic workout. It strengthens the bridge between logic and empathy, forcing both to operate together. The ability to use or understand sarcasm depends not just on vocabulary, but on emotional intelligence and timing. A well-placed sarcastic remark says, "I know you know that I don't mean what I said." It's a spark of shared awareness, a tiny test of intellect and social harmony disguised as playful mischief. People who laugh easily tend to form stronger social bonds. Laughter is one of the oldest languages humans share. Long before structured speech evolved, our ancestors used laughter to signal safety, belonging, and cooperation. Modern research shows that frequent, genuine laughter triggers the release of oxytocin, a powerful hormone that deepens trust. People who laugh easily invite others into this gentle physiological synchrony, aligning breath and heart rate, lowering cortisol, and diffusing threat. A single shared laugh can turn strangers into allies, if only for a moment. Those who can find humor in ordinary life are often seen as more approachable, more forgiving, and more resilient in difficult times. Their laughter becomes social gravity, drawing others near. The bonds that form through this rhythm often last because they are built on calm joy rather than constant excitement or drama. To laugh easily is not to take life lightly. It's to remind everyone around you that connection can begin with sound, not words, with shared feeling rather than shared information. Stress and personality. Personality determines whether stress energizes or exhausts you. Under tension. Some people surge with focused energy while others wilt. The difference often lies in baseline temperament and interpretation. People high in emotional stability tend to view stress as challenge rather than threat. activating adrenaline in a focused, constructive way. Those high in neuroticism perceive stress as threat, triggering hormonal patterns that drain and destabilize. It's the same chemical storm, but filtered through different cognitive lenses. Optimists draw momentum from difficulty, while worriers lose reserves trying to predict what might go wrong. These responses are not moral strengths or weaknesses. They're survival styles shaped by early environment and inherited nervous system settings. Over time, mindfulness, adequate rest, and supportive relationships can shift the reaction curve. Teaching even sensitive bodies to channel stress into clarity rather than collapse. Whether energy or exhaustion follows pressure depends not only on the event, but on the inner translator interpreting it. Optimists recover faster from emotional setbacks. Optimism acts as emotional shock absorber. When disappointment strikes, optimistic individuals interpret the pain as temporary and specific rather than permanent and global. Their minds say, "This is a moment, not a sentence. This is one bad day, not my entire life." That framing matters biologically. It reduces stress hormone duration and helps the immune system rebound faster. Optimists naturally engage coping mechanisms sooner, reaching for social contact, humor, or creative distraction. They allow themselves to imagine better outcomes, and that imagination becomes behavioral momentum. Even their neural activity reflects this pattern. Brain scans show faster return to baseline in regions linked to negative emotion. Over years, this becomes self-reinforcing. Each successful recovery teaches the mind that healing is possible, which builds further resilience. Optimism is not naive denial of hardship. It's a learned confidence that suffering can pass and the self that remains afterward may even emerge stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Chronic pessimism can subtly shorten lifespan. A persistently negative worldview quietly taxes the body. When the brain constantly anticipates threat, it keeps the stress response slightly activated, never fully resting. Cortisol remains elevated, heart rate recovery slows, inflammation increases. These small physiological ripples accumulate over decades. Pessimists often experience disrupted sleep, higher anxiety, and reduced motivation to engage in healthful behaviors. Yet the mechanism is not simply about outlook, it's about vigilance. The mind believes it must prepare for harm at all times, and the body obeys that belief. Over years, this permanent readiness erodes systems meant for repair. Interestingly, moderate realism can protect against both extremes. Balanced thinkers recognize risk without surrendering to it, allowing the body to rest between storms. Pessimism may feel like caution, but in biological terms, it becomes slow abrasion. Hope is not just psychological comfort, it's maintenance for the machinery of life. Extroverts tend to underestimate risks and overestimate control. Extroverted individuals often feel more capable of influencing outcomes than they truly are. Their brains deliver stronger dopamine signals when faced with new or uncertain situations, which makes novelty feel rewarding instead of frightening. This chemistry encourages exploration and leadership, but also underestimation of danger. Extroverts may assume that charm or determination can outweigh structural limits, leading them to take bolder chances. Their optimism draws others in, creating energy and collaboration that sometimes compensates for risk blindness. However, the same confidence that propels groups forward can expose them to missteps if not balanced by cautious voices. The world advances through this dance between boldness and restraint. Extroverts supply the spark, reflective minds supply the map. When these two forces respect each other, progress happens without collapse. Confidence is beautiful when it listens. It becomes hubris only when it forgets to ask, "What if?" Conscientious people live longer on average than impulsive ones. Long-term studies show that conscientiousness strongly predicts lifespan. This trait involves reliability, self-discipline, and attention to detail, which translate directly into healthier habits. Conscientious people tend to avoid dangerous shortcuts, follow medical advice, and maintain stable sleep and nutrition routines. They are also less prone to addiction and reckless behavior. The cumulative effect of these small, sensible choices is profound. Their bodies experience fewer extreme stress episodes, fewer accidents, and better recovery from illness. Impulsive individuals, while often creative and daring, may push limits in ways that wear the body down. It's not about moral virtue, but about energy management. The patient planner conserves resources, the thrill seeker spends them fast. Evolution likely kept both types because society needs caution and courage in balance. Longevity tends to favor the cautious, but history often remembers the bold. Both serve life in different tempos. Genetics and environment. Impulsivity is partly heritable and partly environmental. Impulsivity begins with biology. Some people inherit neural circuits that fire reward signals quickly and inhibit them slowly. Their dopamine systems light up early, telling the body to move before full reflection. Yet genes don't write destiny. Environment sculpts how that impulsivity appears. In supportive structured settings, it can become creativity, spontaneity, and courage. In chaotic or neglectful ones, it can become self-sabotage or risk-seeking. Childhood discipline, safety, and role modeling teach the impulsive mind how to pause without extinguishing its spark. Scientists describe this interaction as gene-environment interplay, the living conversation between inherited wiring and lived experience. The same trait that makes one person reckless might make another a brilliant improviser. What matters is guidance, not suppression. Impulsivity is energy in motion. With patience, that energy becomes invention rather than destruction, movement rather than chaos. Career and life outcomes. Personality predicts financial habits and career satisfaction. Money and work reflect temperament as much as skill. Conscientious individuals often budget carefully, track details, and plan long-term. They draw comfort from order and delayed gratification. Extroverts gravitate toward roles involving social energy, teamwork, or leadership, while introverts thrive in analytical or creative solitude. People high in openness may invest in ideas rather than stability, choosing education, travel, or art over security. Agreeable personalities prioritize harmony, sometimes at the expense of assertive negotiation. Each orientation carries strengths and vulnerabilities. Success rises when occupation and personality align rather than conflict. A person who needs autonomy suffers in micromanagement, while one who craves structure struggles with chaos. Fulfillment comes when your work rhythm matches your nervous system. The paycheck matters less than the fit between task and temperament. Career satisfaction is not found by climbing highest, but by standing where you can breathe easily. Leaders tend to show high extroversion and low neuroticism. People naturally follow those who radiate confidence and calm. High extroversion produces visible enthusiasm, and low neuroticism allows composure under strain. These qualities together project stability, encouraging trust. Yet leadership is not merely loudness or stoicism, it is social regulation. The leader's nervous system becomes a template for the group. If it is steady, others synchronize toward focus. If it wavers, collective anxiety rises. This dynamic explains why extroverted, emotionally stable personalities often rise in hierarchies even when they lack expertise. They signal safety, and safety feels like competence. Still, effective leadership depends on empathy and adaptability as much as boldness. Some of history's most transformative figures were introverted visionaries who led through insight, not volume. In truth, leadership is not about type, but about timing. The moment decides whether the world needs a voice of fire or a whisper of calm. Creativity and conformity. Creativity thrives in people high in openness and low in conformity. Open minds delight in novelty. They are willing to wander into ambiguity and return with strange treasures. When combined with low conformity, this openness becomes creative fire. Such individuals are less bound by rules, more comfortable with risk, and better able to integrate contradictory ideas. They find inspiration in chaos, where others see only confusion. Neuroscientists find that highly open people display more cross-communication between brain networks responsible for imagination and logical control, allowing unusual associations to form. Low conformity ensures those associations are expressed rather than censored. Creativity is therefore not random but permission, the inner voice that says, "Try it anyway." Culture depends on this tension. Without openness, society stagnates. Without conformity, it unravels. True creativity lives between the two, breaking form just enough to let light in without burning the whole structure down. Empathy and compassion. Empaths mirror others' facial muscles automatically. Empaths experience emotion almost as if it were contagious. When they witness someone's expression, subtle facial muscles activate in mimicry, often within a fraction of a second. This micro-imitation helps the brain understand what the other person feels by recreating it physically. It is an unconscious bridge between bodies. The process involves the insular and anterior cingulate cortex, regions that link sensation with emotion. Because empaths mirror so efficiently, they can comfort deeply, yet also become exhausted easily. The flood of borrowed feeling demands recovery time that others might not require. Strong empathy can therefore coexist with social fatigue. It is a reminder that compassion is physiological, not only moral. The empath does not simply imagine pain, they partially relive it. Their tenderness is built on biology, a nervous system tuned to echo the hearts around it. People high in agreeableness are more likely to forgive betrayal. Agreeable personalities value harmony and connection. When hurt, they often search for reasons before revenge, assuming misunderstanding rather than malice. Their empathy systems activate strongly, making forgiveness feel more rewarding than resentment. This trait can preserve relationships through difficult seasons, allowing reconciliation where others would cut ties. However, it can also expose them to repeated harm if boundaries are not learned. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, it means releasing the desire to retaliate. For the agreeable person, this release happens quickly because conflict feels physically uncomfortable. Their nervous system calms only when peace returns. The same pattern that nurtures friendship can therefore trap them in lopsided bonds. True healing for them involves learning to forgive without surrendering safety, to maintain kindness without permitting cruelty. Their gift is mercy, but even mercy needs a door that can close. Difficult personalities. Narcissism can sometimes mask fragile self-esteem. Behind a narcissistic exterior, there often hides a fragile core. The boastful tone, constant self-reference, and hunger for admiration serve as defense against deep insecurity. For many, early experiences of neglect or conditional love taught that worth must be earned through display. The exaggerated self becomes armor, polished until it blinds others and hides the soft interior. When admiration fades, panic rises because silence feels like erasure. Understanding this mechanism does not excuse manipulation, but it reveals motive. Narcissistic individuals are not simply full of themselves. They are dependent on others to maintain the illusion of solidity. Compassion toward this truth can help set boundaries without hatred. One can acknowledge the wound beneath the arrogance while refusing to feed the performance. Beneath the glitter and echo, narcissism is a lonely attempt to be seen by a mirror that never truly reflects back love. Psychopathy and empathy exist on a shared neural spectrum. Empathy is not a single light switch that is either on or off. It has multiple components that can vary independently. Emotional empathy involves feeling what another feels. Cognitive empathy involves understanding what another feels. People with psychopathic traits often have the second without the first. They read cues precisely but remain unmoved. Brain imaging shows reduced activation in emotional processing areas, such as the amygdala, but normal or even heightened activation in regions linked to reasoning about others' motives. This allows strategic charm and manipulation. At the opposite extreme are individuals who feel emotions of others too strongly, risking burnout. Between them lies the wide normal range of human empathy, adjustable through experience and choice. The spectrum reminds us that morality does not rest on a single circuit. It rests on how understanding and feeling combine within the space of conscience. Highly conscientious people experience guilt more intensely. To the highly conscientious person, responsibility is sacred. When they fail even slightly, the internal alarm is loud. The same circuitry that drives careful planning and reliability can also create sharp self-criticism. Physiological studies show heightened stress responses in such individuals when confronted with errors. Their brains replay the mistake as if re-editing a scene that cannot be changed. The advantage is accountability. The disadvantage is exhaustion. Constant guilt can lead to perfectionism, insomnia, and emotional burnout, yet their integrity keeps communities functioning. They are the ones who notice the forgotten detail, who finish what they promised, who cannot rest until the work is right. The world depends on them, though they rarely give themselves equal compassion. Learning to forgive themselves is their final act of duty, the moment when conscience evolves into balance. Self-perception. Humility correlates with accurate self-perception. Humility is often misunderstood as weakness, but it is cognitive precision. Humble people see themselves with clarity rather than distortion. They acknowledge strengths without exaggeration and flaws without collapse. Brain research suggests they experience less defensive reactivity when corrected, allowing learning to happen faster. This calm realism strengthens relationships because it removes the need for constant validation. Others feel safe near humility. It leaves room for shared truth. Culturally, humility sustains cooperation, preventing dominance hierarchies from consuming empathy. On an individual level, it protects mental health by reducing the exhausting chase for superiority. True humility is not pretending to be less. It is refusing to pretend to be more. It steadies the identity like a compass that points to honesty, even in chaos. In that stillness, growth becomes easier because there is nothing left to prove. Confidence can be taught through repeated success experiences. Confidence is not mysterious, it is conditioning. Each time a person faces a challenge and succeeds, the brain stores that event as proof of capability. The more proof accumulated, the stronger the self-belief. This process occurs through reinforcement loops between the hippocampus, which records experience, and the prefrontal cortex, which evaluates outcome. Gradual exposure to manageable challenges builds enduring confidence better than sudden leaps. Even micro-victories count, such as completing small goals or keeping promises to oneself over time. These accumulate into quiet certainty. Confidence is therefore not arrogance or denial of fear. It is memory organized into courage. Anyone can cultivate it through repetition. When failure occurs, reframing it as information rather than judgment prevents the loop from breaking. Confidence grows best not in perfection, but in persistence that teaches the mind to trust its own recovery. Personality changes over time. Personality shifts slightly every 7 to 10 years. Longitudinal studies reveal that personality is not static. Over roughly each decade, small yet measurable changes occur. Impulsivity tends to decrease, conscientiousness rises, and emotional stability improves. These gradual adjustments reflect learning, hormonal evolution, and environmental adaptation. The brain's plasticity allows new wiring even in adulthood influenced by habits, relationships, and repeated emotional patterns. Major transitions such as career change, loss, or parenthood can accelerate the process, prompting re-evaluation of priorities. Personality does not vanish, it refinishes. The core melody remains recognizable while the arrangement evolves. This continuous soft remodeling is why people often feel wiser or gentler with time. Change does not erase authenticity, it completes it. The self you are becoming is not betrayal of who you were. It is the accumulated echo of every season you have lived, singing forward through a mind still capable of growth. Adolescence is a critical window for shaping personality. During the teenage years, the brain is undergoing one of the most dramatic remodeling periods of the entire lifespan. Neurons are strengthened if they are used and trimmed back if they are not, which means experience is physically carving individuality into the nervous system. Emotional centers mature quickly, while areas for long-term planning are still catching up. This gap is why intensity and impulsivity feel so overwhelming in this stage. It is also why first love, friendship, embarrassment, and betrayal feel almost cosmic in scale. The social world matters more than almost anything else because belonging teaches safety. Beliefs about trust, worth, power, and love are being formed at a cellular level. By the end of this period, the mind carries forward a style of responding to the world that can echo softly or loudly for decades. Personality tends to stabilize around the age of 30. In the early adult years, the mind begins to settle into patterns that feel familiar and repeatable. Habits of thought and emotion start reinforcing themselves, creating a sense of inner continuity. The parts of the brain responsible for self-control, planning, and emotional regulation have now matured fully, which helps reactions become more measured and predictable. Preferences become clearer, values begin to feel non-negotiable. The constant shifting seen in younger years gives way to something steadier, almost like a center of gravity forming. This is also the point in life when many people report feeling that they know what kind of life they can live peacefully and what kind of life will cost them too much. The self becomes less experimental and more intentional, guided not only by possibility, but also by self-knowledge that has been earned through experience. Major life events like marriage or parenthood can shift traits. Profound commitments reach deep into the nervous system and rearrange priorities. When someone joins their life with another person or becomes responsible for a child, attention naturally moves outward. The brain begins rewarding care, cooperation, and protection. What once felt optional now feels sacred. People who take on these bonds often find themselves developing greater patience, reliability, and emotional steadiness, even if those qualities did not come easily before. The sense of identity stretches to include others. Time begins to be measured in shared milestones rather than individual impulses. The nervous system even tunes itself to notice signals of another person's needs with faster sensitivity. It is not that the old self disappears. It is that new rooms are built inside it. Rooms made for duty, tenderness, and the long, slow practice of staying. Trauma can compress personality into survival-focused patterns. When the body has lived too long in fear, the mind adapts by narrowing itself around safety. Curiosity fades because curiosity can feel dangerous. Spontaneity fades because surprises have not been kind. The emotional system becomes watchful. It scans for threat even in places that are calm. This is not weakness. It is a survival response that allowed the person to endure what should not have had to be endured. Over time, however, this protective narrowing can begin to feel like a cage. Interests shrink, trust becomes difficult, life feels smaller than it once was. Healing is the slow and careful work of teaching the body that the story has changed. With time, support, and consistent safety, the mind remembers how to open again. Gentle moments of curiosity return, so does softness. The self that was forced to fold back in on itself can one moment at a time unfold. Long-term therapy can measurably change personality traits. Ongoing therapeutic work is not just conversation, it is neural training. Repeating the act of noticing thoughts, naming feelings, and exploring reactions in a safe space teaches the nervous system to pause before it responds. Over many sessions, the regions of the brain involved in emotional regulation and self-awareness become more coordinated. People who once reacted out of fear begin to respond with reflection. People who once shut down begin to stay present. People who once felt brittle begin to feel flexible. These are not illusions. They are measurable and lasting shifts in temperament. The mind learns that it is not helpless inside its own patterns and that knowledge alone changes those patterns. Through this process, many people become calmer, kinder to themselves, more open with others, and less ruled by past pain. In this way, healing is not only relief, healing becomes identity work. Cultural and environmental influences. Moving to a new culture can reshape openness and agreeableness. Entering an unfamiliar culture is like entering another emotional climate. Social rules are different. What is polite in one place is distant in another. What is honest in one place is rude in another. The mind is forced to adapt not only to language, but to rhythm, packing, humor, and expectation. This ongoing adaptation builds flexibility and perspective. It also makes a person more understanding of difference, because difference stops feeling threatening and starts feeling normal. Living in a culture that is not originally one's own often encourages patience in communication, creativity in problem solving, and humility in daily life. It becomes easier to see situations from someone else's point of view because one has had to do so simply to exist. That repeated act of perspective taking does not always fade when one returns home. It becomes part of the way the self navigates the world. Travel exposure tends to increase flexibility and curiosity. New environments stimulate the orienting systems of the brain. Unfamiliar architecture, unfamiliar food, unfamiliar sounds, and unfamiliar gestures all send a message to the nervous system that says, pay attention. That attention wakes up parts of the mind that routine can quietly numb. People who spend meaningful time in different places often learn to tolerate uncertainty and even enjoy it. Patience grows because travel teaches that not everything will go to plan and that this is not the end of the world. Curiosity grows because every moment becomes a small invitation to learn over time. This repeated contact with unfamiliar experience tends to soften rigid assumptions. There is less need to defend one way of living as the correct way. Instead, there is a growing sense that the world is many worlds, and that reality is much bigger than what one first knew. Agging often brings more emotional stability and empathy. With time, emotional storms lose some of their force. The body becomes less reactive, and the mind becomes more patient. This is not because feeling fades, it is because perspective deepens. After enough loss, enough healing, enough unexpected changes, the nervous system begins to recognize that states are temporary. Fear is temporary, anger is temporary, grief is real, but it moves. This quiet understanding allows a kind of gentleness to appear toward oneself and toward others. Older adults often report being less easily provoked and more easily touched. Compassion flows more easily because life has revealed how fragile people truly are. The focus shifts from proving something to tending something. Stability here is not a dulling. It is a soft but powerful steadiness built from years of surviving what once felt unsurvivable. Most people grow more conscientious with age. Over the course of adulthood, daily responsibility slowly sculpts the mind into reliability. Bills must be paid, promises must be kept, loved ones must be cared for, work must be done even when energy is low. Each of these demands becomes a kind of training for attention and follow-through. The brain learns to plan, to anticipate, to consider consequences. Impulses are still present, but they are less in charge. The reward system itself begins to change. There is a growing sense of satisfaction in completion, in order, in stability. What once felt like restriction now begins to feel like groundedness. For many, this sense of order is not about control for its own sake. It is about protecting what matters. With time, conscientiousness feels less like effort and more like devotion. Neuroticism usually declines later in life. Anxious thoughts do not disappear, but their grip softens. Repeated exposure to loss, uncertainty, and change teaches the mind that it can survive emotional intensity. The body gradually stops reacting to every uncertainty as an emergency. Stress hormones settle more quickly. The space between trigger and response becomes a little wider. That space makes room for choice. Many older adults report a deeper ability to let small things go without swallowing them. They save their energy for what truly matters. There is also a quiet shift from rumination to acceptance. The mind slowly trades the question, what if everything falls apart, for the gentler question, even if it does, will I still be here? With that recognition comes relief. The nervous system trusts itself more. That trust feels like peace. Happiness and well-being. Certain personality traits predict happiness more than income does. Long-term studies across many places suggest that emotional stability, optimism, and kindness are more powerful predictors of life satisfaction than wealth once basic needs are met. People who can soothe their own distress, reframe disappointment, and connect warmly with others tend to report higher well-being even without high status or luxurious surroundings. This does not mean money is meaningless. Comfort matters, safety matters, but after a certain point, temperament determines how experience is interpreted. Two people can live through the exact same day, yet one remembers support, humor, and small pleasures, while the other remembers insult, exhaustion, and threat. The way the mind filters reality becomes the climate in which happiness survives or withers. In that sense, well-being is not only about what happens, it is also about who is there inside to meet what happens. Gratitude practice can increase agreeableness over time. When a person repeatedly pauses to notice what they appreciate, the spotlight of attention slowly shifts. Irritation and resentment are not denied, but they are no longer the only story. The nervous system becomes more familiar with warmth. Feelings like tenderness and respect become easier to access over time. People who intentionally practice gratitude tend to become more patient in conversation, more forgiving after conflict, and less quick to assume the worst in others. Biology reflects this. Hormones linked to bonding rise. Stress responses settle more quickly. The result is not fake cheerfulness. The result is an easier time extending understanding. The inner posture tilts away from defensiveness and toward cooperation. What begins as a quiet nightly habit becomes a true personality adjustment, one that makes gentleness easier to offer and easier to receive. High curiosity predicts lifelong learning. Curious minds treat the unknown not as a threat, but as an invitation. That attitude encourages constant engagement with new ideas, new people, and new skills across the entire lifespan. Curiosity activates reward pathways in the brain, giving a small burst of pleasure each time something is discovered or understood. This makes learning self-reinforcing. It also protects against stagnation. People who remain curious tend to adapt better because they are used to updating their beliefs. They are also more resilient because they can turn hardship into a question and then turn that question into growth. Memory stays richer because new information keeps arriving. Empathy can even deepen because curiosity about the world so easily becomes curiosity about other human beings. The result is a personality that stays awake, flexible, playful, and alive even in later years. A strong sense of purpose can buffer neurotic tendencies. Anxiety thrives in uncertainty without meaning. When a person feels guided by a purpose, even a small one, worry loses much of its ability to dominate attention. Stressful events are no longer just discomfort. They are steps within a path. Physiologically, this changes how the body responds. The stress response is still activated, but it does not spiral as easily. Focus returns faster, recovery happens sooner. A clear reason to act gives the mind something steady to hold, which quiets rumination. Purpose also directs energy outward towards service, craft, protection, or creation. That outward movement interrupts cycles of self-criticism. In this way, meaning becomes emotional scaffolding. It does not erase fear. It simply gives fear somewhere safe to lean until it can breathe again. Compassion training can increase altruism in measurable ways. When a person spends time actively practicing compassion, even in guided imagination or meditation, specific regions of the brain involved in understanding the feelings of others grow more responsive. Heart rate patterns begin to reflect calm and receptivity rather than defensiveness. Over weeks and months, this inner training begins to alter outward behavior. People become more patient in conflict. They interrupt less, they comfort more, they give without needing credit. This generosity isn't forced or performed. It flows naturally from practice, from repetition, from teaching the heart that opening toward others is safe and worthwhile. The brain literally reshapes itself around kindness, making what once felt difficult begin to feel effortless and natural. Studies tracking long-term meditators who focus on compassion practices show measurable increases in helpful behavior, charitable giving, and willingness to assist strangers even at personal cost. This isn't about becoming perfect or saintly. It's about becoming more human, more connected, more aware of the invisible threads that link all living beings together in shared experience. Compassion training reminds the nervous system that we are not alone, that suffering can be met with tenderness, and that the act of caring for another can heal the one who offers that care just as powerfully as the one who receives it. Meaning in life strongly correlates with lower anxiety and depression. When a person feels that their life points towards something beyond mere survival, beyond just getting through each day, the mind settles into a deeper kind of calm and stability. Meaning acts like an anchor in rough seas, holding the self steady when waves of uncertainty crash overhead. It doesn't eliminate pain or prevent loss, but it transforms those experiences into chapters rather than endings, into lessons rather than punishments. People with a strong sense of meaning report feeling more hopeful, more resilient, and more capable of tolerating discomfort when it arrives. Their brains show different patterns of activity when facing stress, engaging regions tied to purpose and values rather than pure threat response. This shift allows them to ask not only, how do I escape this, but also, what can I learn from this? How can this serve something larger than my immediate comfort? Meaning doesn't always come from grand achievement or dramatic revelation. Often it comes from quiet devotion to small things done consistently with care and attention over time. A life woven with purpose becomes a life that can withstand storms because the foundation is built not on fleeting pleasure, but on lasting commitment to what truly matters. Social connection matters more than almost any other factor for happiness. Humans are deeply, profoundly social creatures. Our nervous systems are built to regulate each other, to calm each other, to find safety in proximity and shared rhythm. Loneliness doesn't just feel painful emotionally. It registers in the body as a biological emergency, triggering inflammation, disrupting sleep, weakening immune function, and accelerating aging at the cellular level. By contrast, warm, reliable relationships act as medicine. They buffer stress, improve recovery from illness, and even extend lifespan. The quality of connection matters far more than quantity. A single person who truly sees you, who listens without judgment, who stays present through difficulty, that one relationship can transform an entire life. Personality shapes how easily we form these bonds. Extroverts build wide networks naturally. Introverts cultivate depth with fewer people. Agreeable individuals attract connection through warmth. Conscientious people maintain it through reliability and follow through. But regardless of temperament, the need remains the same. We are wired to belong, to be known, to matter to someone. In the end, happiness is less about what you achieve and more about who walks beside you, who remembers your name, who notices when you're struggling and reaches out without needing to be asked. The beauty of difference. And so, after this long, gentle journey through the science of personality, we arrive at a simple truth. There is no single way to be human, no perfect temperament, no ideal self that we should all be striving to become. The cautious mind protects what the bold mind might overlook. The dreamer imagines what the planner brings into reality. The empath feels what the analyst understands. Each personality carries gifts and costs, strengths and vulnerabilities, light and shadow woven together inseparably. Your personality is not something to fix or overcome. It's the particular music your nervous system has learned to play, shaped by genes and experience, by memory and imagination, by every moment you've lived and every choice you've made along the way. Understanding personality through science doesn't diminish its mystery. If anything, it deepens the wonder. To know that a single molecule can shift temperament, that early kindness can echo across decades, that the brain continues sculpting itself throughout life, all of this reveals how magnificent and fragile and endlessly adaptable we truly are. You are not stuck, you are not finished. Every day, every choice, every moment of awareness offers the possibility of gentle change, of growth, of becoming slightly more the person you wish to be while honoring the person you've always been. So as you drift towards sleep tonight, let yourself rest in this knowledge. You are enough exactly as you are, complex and contradictory, steady and changing, shaped by forces far beyond your control, yet capable of shaping yourself through intention and care. Your personality is not your prison, it's your home. And like any home, it can be tended, rearranged, open to new light while still providing shelter and familiarity. You carry within you the wisdom of your ancestors, the resilience of your experiences, and the possibility of tomorrow's growth. Rest now. Let your thoughts slow and soften. Let the science we've explored tonight become a gentle lullaby, a reminder that you are part of something vast and intricate and beautiful, a single unique thread in the endless tapestry of human consciousness. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for your curiosity, your attention, your willingness to wonder. May your sleep be deep and restful. May your dreams be kind. And may you wake tomorrow with a little more understanding, a little more compassion for the remarkable, irreplaceable person you are. Good night, friend. Sleep well.